Hello there guys, what is going on? SonOfChelsea back here again for my team selector and preview ahead of tomorrow night's Champions League quarterfinal first leg against Porto. We're away from home, but both legs are being played at Sevilla's home ground, a ground that Chelsea know well and should have fond memories of from back in December when we won there 4-0 if you remember. So Chelsea going into this game, it's a chance to respond after Saturday's disastrous performance, but I think irrelevant to what happened on Saturday, this is such a big game for Chelsea. The pressure is on Chelsea, I think, a lot more now. Because I think of obviously responding to the West Brom defeat, but also psychologically, I think Chelsea have gone into a lot of knockout ties in the last 16 as underdogs in recent years. That's not the case for this game. I think that you can call it an even game like any quarterfinal is. I think any team that gets to the quarterfinal of the Champions League, there's a reason they haven't. It's because they're a quality side with quality players and a great unit. Also tactically very astute, and that's something we will get into with Porto because I think they pose such a difficult test for Chelsea in the way Chelsea have failed, in recent years in terms of breaking down teams with great defensive structure. And I think that's what Porto will have going into this game and why they've made it this far in the competition. Before we get into any of that good stuff, team news, my lineup, looking at Porto as well, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also hit the like button if you're enjoying the content because it helps out the channel as well. Thomas Tuchel's team news, wonderful team news. It could have been a little bit better, but the news of Thomas Tuchel confirming that N'Golo Kante, Christian Pulisic and Tammy Abraham are all fit enough to be in the squad for Porto is brilliant news. In particular, N'Golo Kante, firstly, because we expected him to be out of this game completely. He did say he's going to be on the bench, so he won't be starting the game, which is a little bit frustrating. It would have been a dream scenario to have Kante back in the starting lineup because you wanted to play both of these games, but just it's positive he's back fit. Rudiger confirmed to be starting after all the stuff about him and Kepa. It seems like that's sort of put behind them now, and it doesn't seem like that's going to impact team selection for this game. I thought we missed Rudiger, as I'll get into in my team lineup for this game, but it's good to see that Rudiger's confirmed to start as well. But let's take a look at our opponents, FC Porto. You'd expect, based on where they've got to in the Champions League this season, that they'd be top of their league. They're actually not. Of course, beat Juve. Sergio Conceição's side are second, 7 points behind Sporting Lisbon in the Portuguese league. Midfielder Sergio Olivier, who's suspended, is their top goal scorer with 12 goals. He's had such a big season for them. He scored twice against Juve in the second leg, which got them here as well. Another player suspended after a second yellow against Juve in the last round is Mehdi Taremi, who's another big goal scorer for them this season. So two of their biggest attacking threats, Porto, will be out tomorrow night. And I sort of went into looking at sort of Porto tactically, what we will come up against, because I think obviously there isn't that much knowledge in terms of Porto, in terms of one of those big European teams. But I think what's intriguing to me is the similarity between Porto, sort of their approach to this game and what we faced against Atletico Madrid, specifically in the first leg. And Michael Cox for the Athletic, when he was previewing all the quarterfinals, he brought up this about Porto. The major takeaway from Porto's first leg victory over Juve was the extent to which they felt like an iteration of Diego Simeone's Atletico Madrid, a deep, compact 4-4-2 block that became 5-4-1, and at times in the second leg, more like 6-3-1. In that sense, Chelsea had the perfect preparation for this tie, and Porto without Olivier and Taremi is probably going to force them to be even more defensive than they usually are. Now, I expect that 4-4-2 formation, as I say, at times it could look a lot more defensive than it is, and I think Chelsea will have to deal with that. I just think it's for Chelsea in this game, their ability to counter press, something that I was speaking with Jay McIntosh about, and he brought up that Porto are not afraid to shoot from distance, and you do wonder in a game where they're probably going to be sitting like the away side, Chelsea have a lot of the ball. Chelsea need to be aware of that too, and their attacking threats. And as we saw in the last round, the unity, the belief, the mentality, the fight, the spirit, these are things that are demeaned, but they're the reason why they've got this far, because it's quite clear they don't have the most talented squad in the competition, but what they do have is a brilliant coach tactically who's gotten them in the right shape, the right compact shape to get them through difficult ties, to get them to the quarterfinal. And I think it's going to be a really tight game over two legs, a bit like against Atletico Madrid. But in that sense, as a positive, Chelsea have experienced that type of opponent in the last leg and succeeded, so hopefully that's the best preparation for Porto. But for me, I think for Chelsea, it's all about the counter press to control the game, and that clinical edge that Chelsea have lacked. And that's my greatest concern, because the lack of goals in this team away from the front three, I think, is a big concern. And I think from midfield, it's that one area defensively, but also offensively, that has been such a key issue for Chelsea. And I do worry in a game where Chelsea will have to dominate possession but have to be a little bit more inventive. You think back to that Atletico first leg, if it wasn't for Olivier Giroud's overhead kick, there's a likelihood that game finishes 0-0 and the second leg looks completely different. So I think for me, Chelsea, there needs to be that invention, there needs to be that clinical edge with the rare chances we do have, and it's interesting to see how Tuchel will line up offensively in this game considering the opponent we're going to face in Porto. I think for the first time in my preview, I've made 3 predicted lineups, because of course Tuchel, he makes so many changes and it's hard sometimes to guess. I think it still will be the 3-4-2-1. I don't think the West Brom game changes that. Interestingly and disappointingly, Billy Gilmour is out of this squad. For apparently he hasn't travelled, and that's a real shame for me, because as you can see with some of my lineups, I did put Billy Gilmour in because I thought Gilmour was such a great option to bring in here. And I also felt just the performance level of both Jorginho and Kovacic, in particular Jorginho, was so terrible on Saturday. I don't think they really deserve to start again. But it's likely now that Georgie and Kova will be that double six with Kante sitting on the bench. So just even though I've put Gilmour on some of these lineups, it will be Georgie and Kova. I just think that Gilmour, in a game once again where Chelsea I think will be dominating the ball, you need invention from central midfield, and unfortunately Jorginho and Kovacic have been guilty of not offering that for Chelsea. But his first lineup here, the back three is interesting because Thiago Silva, of course, shown the red on Saturday, so won't be featuring against Palace. But we've always experienced, we've always classed with how well he's done for Chelsea this season, with the exception of those 2 West Brom games. This could be the back three: Christensen, Thiago Silva and Rudiger, because there is this debate around Christensen, Thiago Silva as the middle of the back three, but I'd quite like to see Christensen on the right side. And I think this back three here is the best passing back three Chelsea have. If you're thinking once again of Chelsea trying to break down a low block, passing from deep is so important, switches of play. And I think the invention and vision from these 3 players, our 3 best ball playing centre backs, I think could be an interesting way to go about it if you want to keep both Christensen and Thiago Silva, of course Rudiger, in a back three too. I think Chilwell has to come back in here. I think Alonso was terrible on Saturday, and Ben Chilwell, for me, his form has just been getting better and better. I think week by week had a really good international break, so I expect him to start this game. Reece James, right wing back, unlike Gilmour and Kovacic, I think it'll be Georgie and Kova. I think that'll be the guaranteed double six tomorrow. And then we go into the attacking part of the pitch, which is always so unpredictable game by game. Mason Mount, I think, has to be starting this game. I think you need his pressing from the front, Chelsea counter pressing. You think about the first leg against Atletico Madrid, really pinning Atletico Madrid back. Mason was such a key part of that, being able to press from the front, and I think we need his energy again tomorrow. Didn't start against West Brom, so I expect him to start tomorrow night. And then without Kai Havertz, so I do think he's more likely to start. You've got, of course, Pulisic, who's fit now, did start and score against West Brom. Timo Werner, who seems to be a guaranteed starter at the moment, despite maybe some rocky form at times. And maybe just going for a natural number 9 in Olivier Giroud and Tammy Abraham, like he did against Atletico Madrid. Maybe Giroud, for someone to hold up the ball, to be maybe clinical in that final third. He could opt for Giroud, who hasn't played a lot under Thomas Tuchel so far and hasn't always looked the best, but that could be an option. And the second formation here, as you can see, Callum Hudson-Odoi instead of Reece James at right wing back, like the first leg against Atletico Madrid, just adding a little bit more of that attacking threat, I think, from Callum Hudson-Odoi if you really want to keep Callum in the team and you have Werner, Mount and Havertz as the front three. I think Kai, for me, I'd love to see Kai start this game. I think he should probably be starting this game, given the fact that he's looked so good as that false 9, number 9. I think the way he performed against Atletico Madrid in the second leg was so impressive. I think he's in a really good vein of form at the moment when he starts in this position, and I think the way he drops deeper at times, the way he moves in and out of position, I think he attracts defenders. I think he opens up space for other players, and he's also got that edge to him. I think physicality wise, he's using his body a lot more now, and I think against the defensive Porto, I think that's very important. And I just think Tuchel's system works better without that typical number 9. I think fluidity of movement is a big part of Chelsea's attack at the moment, and I think Kai brings that. My third lineup here is Mount, Hudson-Odoi and Havertz. This would be my preferred front three personally. Of course, as well, just to mention, Dave could be playing in the back three, so that back three there looks very much like the back three that Tuchel has used the most. Dave, Christensen and Rudiger. I just can't see Thiago Silva not featuring tomorrow, so it is that difficult thing at the moment. Would you drop Dave, captain of the side, such a reliable player, such a mainstay of Chelsea under Thomas Tuchel so far? That's a big decision that Thomas Tuchel has to make for such a big game. But Mount, Hudson-Odoi and Havertz, I think all 3 of these players can form a good relationship. We've seen the relationship between Callum and Kai this season work quite well. I think Callum on the left, I want to see it more for Chelsea. It's such a shame we haven't seen it that much since the Everton game, really. And I think Callum, if he is fit for the game and he is ready to go, I'd like to see him potentially on this left wing to add that directness, but also the way he drops deep and the way he creates for players. Like if you remember Kai's brilliant performance against Everton, you remember that game, Timo played on the right and Callum played on the left. And I think the way Callum and Kai can interchange in movement, and as well Mason's quality as well on top of that, I think both Mount and Kai will likely start this game, given the fact they didn't start on a Saturday against West Brom. It's just that third attacker it's up for debate, as it always is, and this attack is so sort of awkward and unpredictable at the moment, so it's hard to sort of nail down what is the best front three. But that is my lineup, or my predicted lineup, so let me know yours in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this preview. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.